Welcome back to another deep dive. Today, we're pulling back the curtain a bit.
We are. We're looking at how international football, the biggest sport on earth, is actually governed.
Right, not the rules on the pitch so much, but the rules behind the rules, the structure, the power.
Exactly. And we're using FIFA's own documents as our guide.
We've got excerpts from the FIFA statutes, the foundational rule book, you could say, dating back but updated over time.
And, hot off the press, the January 2025 edition of the procedural rules for the FIFA Football Tribunal. That's the dispute system?
So our mission today is to really dig into these official texts.
Just these texts.
Yeah. What do they actually say about FIFA's structure, its aims, and crucially, how fights get settled?
Think of it as looking at the official blueprint they've drawn up themselves. No outside commentary, just what the rules state.
Okay, let's jump right in. Where did the statutes start?
Well, Article 1 is pretty basic. It just says FIFA is an association, it's registered in Switzerland, and its HQ is in Zurich. Simple enough.
Okay, the what, but the why. Article
Okay.
2, right? The objectives. This is where it gets interesting.
It really does. FIFA lists 5 main objectives. First up is constantly improving and promoting football globally.
That sounds good.
And they specifically mention its unifying educational, cultural, and humanitarian values. Youth programs, development, it's all in there under 2A.
So a very positive, aspirational goal right at the start.
Absolutely. But then it gets more, let's say, operational.
Right.
Objective 2B is organizing its own international competitions.
Yeah.
The World Cup being the big one.
Makes sense.
Then 2C, drawing up regulations and making sure they're enforced. That's core governance. And 2P, controlling all types of association football and preventing rule breaches.
Controlling the whole game, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then there's 2E, which feels very relevant today.
Which is?
Preventing practices that could jeopardize the integrity of matches or competitions or lead to abuse. Think match fixing, corruption.
Yeah.
That's their stated mandate to fight it.
Wow, okay. So those are the big 5 aims. Anything else foundational near the start?
Yes, Article 3 is huge. It's the non-discrimination principle.
Ah.
Strictly prohibited and punishable based on ethnic origin, gender, language, religion, politics, or any other reason. It's right there, very explicit.
That's powerful to have so early on.
Definitely. And Article 4 talks about promoting friendly relations, using football for humanitarian aims, and importantly, providing ways to resolve disputes.
Okay, resolving disputes. That sounds like it leads towards the tribunal rules we have.
It does. But before we get there, Article 6 touches on something fundamental. The laws of the game.
The rules everyone plays by on the field. FIFA controls the sport, but do they write these rules?
Actually, no, not directly. The laws are laid down and can only be changed by IFAB, the International Football Association Board.
IFAB, who's on that?
It's fascinating. 8 members total, 4 from FIFA and 4 from the original British associations, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
Still. So those 4 FAs have equal weight with FIFA on the actual rules of play.
Seems so, according to this, a direct link to the game's history embedded in the modern structure. And Article 6 says members must play by these IFAB laws.
Okay, so that's the foundation and the playing rules. Let's zoom out. How is FIFA structured? What are the main bodies running the show, according to the statutes?
Right, Article 21 lays out the main bodies. At the very top, you have the Congress.
The Congress, like a parliament.
Exactly. It's the supreme legislative body, makes the biggest decisions.
How often does it meet? Who's there?
Usually once a year, that's the ordinary Congress. But they can call an extraordinary Congress for urgent stuff.
Right.
The executive committee can call one, or if a fifth of the members request it.
And who gets a say?
Each member association gets 1 vote. Article 23. Simple principle.
One country, one vote, essentially.
Pretty much. And members can propose things for the agenda, nominate candidates for president.
Ah, so the president is elected there.
Yes. Article 24 mentions nominations. And crucially, changing the statutes themselves needs a big majority, 3/4 of those present and eligible to vote, according to Article 26.
And decisions take effect.
Usually 60 days after the Congress, unless they specify otherwise. That's Article 29.
Okay, Congress makes the laws. Who executes them? Who runs things day to day?
That's the executive committee. Article 21 calls it the executive body.
Who sits on that?
It's about 24 people. The president, 8 vice presidents, and then 15 members who come from the confederations, and also representation for those British associations. Article 30 lays it out.
And their term.
4 years, and they could be reelected.
What kind of decisions do they make?
Basically, anything not specifically given to the Congress or another body. They meet at least twice a year. They appoint committee chairs, appoint and dismiss the general secretary.
The top administrator.
Exactly. And they decide things like where competitions are held, how many spots each confederation gets in tournaments, big operational decisions. That's Article 31.
And the president's role within that committee.
The president, according to Article 32, legally represents FIFA. They oversee the general secretariat, manage relations with other bodies, chair the big meetings, Congress, Executive Committee, and the Emergency Committee. They chair all of them. Yep. And in the Executive Committee, they have a regular vote plus a casting vote if there's a tie. So, quite influential.
You mentioned an Emergency Committee.
Yeah, Article 33. For urgent stuff that pops up between Executive Committee meetings, it's smaller. The president plus one member from each confederation who's already on the Executive Committee.
Yeah, quick decision.
Immediate effect. But the full Executive Committee has to ratify them later.
And below that, there are other committees.
Loads of them. Article 34 lists standing committees, things like finance, organizing committees for the World Cup, the Olympics, referees committee, players status committee, legal, ethics, media.
So specialized groups for different areas.
Exactly. Shows the complexity. Most chairs come from the Executive Committee, except for the Internal Audit Committee chair, suggesting a need for independence there.
Okay, that's the structure. What about the members themselves? How does a national association actually join FIFA?
Article 10 covers admission. Generally, you need to be the main body organizing football in your country, usually one per country.
But you mentioned the British FAs.
Right, they're the big historical exception, explicitly noted. And typically, you need 2 years of provisional membership in your Continental Confederation first.
Any other hurdles?
Oh, yes. Your own statutes have to comply with FIFA's rules and principles. And this is key. You must recognize the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS, for dispute resolution.
Mandatory CAS recognition. Got it. And who approves them?
The Congress makes the final decision on admission, Article 9.
So once you're in, what rights do members have?
Article 12 lists them. Taking part in the Congress, obviously voting,
Okay.
proposing agenda items, participating in FIFA competitions, getting benefits from FIFA programs.
Standard association rights.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But Article 13 outlines the obligations, and they're significant.
Like what?
Complying with the statutes, regulations, directives, decisions from FIFA. Paying subscriptions, though, Article 69 caps at $1,000 a year, which seems low.
Only $1,000. Interesting.
Yeah. Also, participating in competitions, ensuring their own members' clubs, players, comply with FIFA rules, respecting the laws of the game.
And if they don't meet these obligations?
Sanctions. Article 13 mentions that. And Articles 14 and 15 detail suspension and expulsion for serious or repeated violations or major financial problems.
Who decides on kicking someone out?
Expulsion is ultimately a Congress decision, but the Executive Committee can suspend a member immediately if the violations are serious, pending the next Congress.
Okay. Now, how do the confederations fit in? The continental bodies like UEFA, CONMEBOL?
Article 20 defines them.
Yeah.
Groups of associations recognized by FIFA based on continent. It lists the 6. CONMEBOL, AFC, UEFA, CAF, CONCACAF, and OFC.
And their relationship with FIFA?
They're vital intermediaries. They have to comply with FIFA's statutes and enforce them. They cooperate with FIFA, run their own continental tournaments, and crucially, they appoint reps to the FIFA Executive Committee. Their own statutes also need FIFA approval. It's a clear hierarchy.
Right, a layered structure. Okay, let's make a shift now. We mentioned resolving disputes earlier. Article 4. Let's dive into that with the second document, the new procedural rules for the football tribunal.
Perfect timing. These rules from January 2025 really flesh out how that dispute resolution happens internally at FIFA.
So what is the football tribunal, or FT?
Article 1 of the FT rules says it's composed of 3 chambers.
Right.
The Dispute Resolution Chamber, or DRC, the Players Status Chamber, PSC, and Agents Chamber, AC.
So different courts for different kinds of football disagreements?
Exactly that. Article 2 says their job is to decide specific types of matters based on the relevant FIFA regulations, like transfer disputes, player contract issues, agent problems.
When they decide, what law do they use? Is it just FIFA's rules?
Primarily, yes. Article 3 states they apply the FIFA statutes and regulations first. But they also consider applicable national laws any relevant collective bargaining agreements in football, and something called the specificity of sport.
Specificity of sport.
Meaning,
The idea that football operates differently from a standard business, so the context matters.
okay, who can actually bring a case or be involved?
Article 9 lists the parties.
Huh.
It's basically everyone involved professionally. Member associations, clubs, players, coaches, licensed football agents, licensed match agents, even single-entity leagues when it comes to agent rules.
How do these parties communicate with the tribunal? Is it all letters and faxes?
Oh, definitely not. It's very modern, very digital. Article 10 is strict. Communication is exclusively through FIFA's online systems, either the legal portal or the transfer matching system, TMS.
Exclusively online.
Exclusively. And here's the kicker. Parties are obliged to check these systems every single day.
Every day. Wow, that's demanding.
It is. Miss a notification or a deadline because you didn't check. Tough luck, essentially. Speaking of deadlines, how do they work?
Article 11 explains. Time limits usually start the day after you receive something directly. If it comes via your member association, there's a slight variation. And interestingly, there's a holiday pause. Time limits don't run between December 20th and January 5th.
A little Christmas break in proceedings?
Sort of. But if you miss a deadline outside that window, your submission is just ignored.
Okay, submissions and evidence. Any specific rules there?
Yes, Article 13. Submissions must be in English, Spanish, or French, FIFA's official languages. Evidence can be in its original language, but you need a translation.
Right.
And a really key point, the chambers aren't limited to just the evidence the parties submit. They can use other info, including data from that transfer matching system, TMS.
So they can bring in their own evidence, effectively.
Seems like it. The rules also stress the duty to cooperate and tell the truth. And the burden of proof lies with the party making an assertion. Standard legal principle, but explicitly stated.
How are decisions reached? Do people fly to Zurich for hearings?
Not usually. Article 14 says decisions are normally based just on the written file. Oral hearings are exceptional. Decisions are by simple majority vote of the judges. Chairperson breaks a tie.
And getting the decision, how does that work?
And notification is direct, Article 15. If there's a sporting sanction, like a ban, you get the full reasoning straight away. But, and this is crucial for appeals if it's just an order to pay procedural costs.
Yes.
You only get the detailed written grounds if you ask for them and pay your share of the cost within 10 days.
Ah, so you have to pay to see the full reasoning if you want to appeal based on that reasoning.
That's how it reads. It links getting the grounds to paying the costs, which could impact your appeal timeline.
Okay, let's look at some specific cases. How does a typical dispute start in, say, the DRC or PSC?
Article 18 outlines the process. You submit a claim via the legal portal. It needs your arguments, your evidence, what outcome you want.
And the other side?
They get notified and have a deadline to respond. They might also file a counterclaim, as per Article 21. FIFA admin does an initial check first, basic stuff like jurisdiction, completeness.
Who decides these cases? Is it always a panel?
Not necessarily. Article 24 gives the details. In the DRC, claims under $200,000 are typically handled by a single judge.
Okay.
Claims for $200K or more, or cases seen as legally complex, go to a panel of at least 3 judges.
And the other chambers? PSC and Agents Chamber.
Generally, a single judge decides, but again, complex matters can be assigned to a 3-judge panel.
What about the cost? Is it expensive to bring a case?
Depends who's involved. Article 25 says if a player, coach, or agent is a party, the procedure itself is free.
Free. Okay.
But for other disputes, say between 2 clubs, there are procedural costs based on the amount disputed charged in it. Annex 1 lists the scale. And PSC proceedings usually require an advance payment of costs, unless it's a regulatory application.
And lawyer fees.
Parties cover their own legal costs. The tribunal doesn't typically order one side to pay the other's lawyer bills.
Is there any room for settling things more amicably?
Yes, mediation is an option, Article 26. The chairperson can suggest it if they think it might work. It's voluntary, free, and uses CAS principles, a way to avoid a formal judgment.
Makes sense. Now, 2 really common issues: training compensation and solidarity mechanism. Money paid for developing players. How are those claims handled?
Articles 27 and 28 are specific here. These claims have to be submitted and managed through the transfer matching system, PMS, not the legal portal.
Ah, a different system for those.
Yes, and you need a lot of detail. Full player career history from age 12, confirmation of season dates from associations, transfer details, amount claimed. It's very data-driven.
There's also something about an electronic player passport, EPP.
Right, Article 28 Bs. The EPP tracks a player's registration history. If FIFA admin finds complexities in that data, often related to training rewards calculations, they can send the file to the DRC
For what purpose?
for a formal binding decision on the player's history. These are free, usually single judge, communication via TMS. Just clarifying the record, basically.
Oh, okay. And finally, under the tribunal rules, the player's status chamber handles regulatory applications. What falls into that category?
Article 29 lists them. It's quite varied. Big one is applications for international transfers or the first registration of minors players under 18.
Always a sensitive topic.
Hugely. The PSC also handles limited exemptions to those minor roles, requests for FIFA to intervene if a player's registration is blocked, questions about player eligibility or changing national teams, and even disputes about players returning late from national duty.
Let's focus on the minors, Article 30. What are the key rules there? It seems really important.
It is. Generally, any international move or first registration for an under 18 needs an application via TMS. But Article 30 notes exceptions.
Such as?
Like if the minor is under 10, or if they've already lived in the new country continuously for at least 5 years, or if it falls under specific national association exemption.
Who's involved in these applications?
Often the player's former association needs to be involved. But not, interestingly, if the move is for compelling humanitarian reasons that seems to bypass the former FA.
Okay, so a really detailed internal system. Now let's connect back to the statutes. You mentioned CAS, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, is mandatory for members to recognize. How does CAS fit in with these FIFA tribunal decisions?
Article 60 of the statutes confirms FIFA recognizes CAS in Lausanne for resolving disputes between FIFA and members, clubs, players, officials, agents, basically everyone.
But if you lose a case at the FIFA tribunal, can you take it higher to CAS?
Generally, yes. Article 61 allows appeals of final decisions from FIFA's legal bodies like the FT or decisions from confederations or members to CAS.
But you have to go through FIFA's system first.
Usually, yes. You have to
Yeah.
exhaust the internal remedies, and there's a deadline, typically 21 days after receiving the grounds of the FIFA decision. Remember that point about paying for the grounds?
Ah, yes, connects back. Are any FIFA decisions final, non-appealable to CAS?
Article 61 lists some, things like violations of the laws of the game themselves, or short suspensions up to 4 matches or 3 months unless it's doping related. Those generally can't be appealed to CAS.
And the statutes seem really strong on forcing people to use CAS, right? Not regular courts.
Extremely strong. Article 62 is critical here. Members, confederations, leagues must recognize CAS and make sure their own members, players, officials comply with CAS decisions.
Must recognize.
And they have to put clauses in their own statutes prohibiting disputes from going to ordinary courts of law unless FIFA rules specifically permit it. The principle is clear. Football problems stay within the football arbitration system, ending at CAS. They even have to sanction those who break this rule.
Wow. Okay. Let's touch briefly on finances mentioned in the statutes.
Right. Article 67 sets a 4-year financial period linked to the World Cup cycle. FIFA aims to balance revenue and expenditure over that time and build up reserves.
And income. We know subscriptions are low.
Article 71 mentions levies. Specifically, a 2% levy on the gross revenue from international A matches between 2 national teams. The host pays.
So a cut of the gate from friendlies and qualifiers.
Seems like it. And Article 10 of the application regulations details how it's calculated.
And ownership. Who owns the rights to the World Cup, the broadcasts, the marketing?
Article 72 is crystal clear. FIFA, its members, and the confederations are the original owners of all rights coming from their competitions and events. Financial, audiovisual, marketing, everything, without restriction.
So they own it all outright from the start.
That's what the rulebook says. It's fundamental to their commercial power.
Okay. So we've walked through quite a journey here. From FIFA's own stated goals in the statutes, through the power structures like Congress and the Executive Committee, down to membership rules, and then deep into the weeds of the football tribunal's procedures for handling disputes, all culminating in CAS.
It paints a picture of a very structured, very detailed system, layer upon layer of rules, from the high-level philosophy down to the deadline for submitting evidence about a youth player's transfer.
It really does. So here's the final thought to leave with you, the listener. We've seen this incredibly detailed blueprint, this complex machine for governing a global sport. Considering everything we've just unpacked, based only on these official documents, the emphasis on process, on controlling the game, on mandatory arbitration, on owning all the rights, does this whole structure feel like it's primarily engineered to deliver on those initial high-minded, unifying educational, cultural, and humanitarian values? Or does it perhaps seem more fundamentally designed as a robust, self-contained system to manage a massive global business and efficiently contain all the inevitable disputes and conflicts that arise within it?
That's the tension, isn't it? The documents present both. The ideals are stated up front, but the sheer weight of the procedural and commercial rules that follow. It definitely makes you think about the primary driver, where the real focus lies in practice.
Something to ponder. It certainly gives you a different lens through which to view the global game.
Absolutely. The off-pitch rules shape the sport just as much as the on-pitch ones.
Well, that's all we have time for on this deep dive into FIFA's rulebooks. We've only scratched the surface, of course, but hopefully, working just from these official sources gives a clearer view of the architecture.
Understanding the framework is definitely key.
Thanks for joining us to explore these foundational rules. As you watch the games and follow the news, maybe keep some of this complex structure in the back of your mind.
Until next time.